Thank you for joining us for a virtual TL Insider cooking class in partnership with Soulpepper Theater Company and Armita Hosseini. Psychologist by training, Armita is a self-taught cook and food stylist who is passionate about the artistic expression of various international cuisines, particularly Middle Eastern and traditional Iranian cuisine. She uses food as an art form and draws inspiration from colors, flavors, textures, art, and her fond childhood memories growing up in the Tehran, Iran. She hopes to highlight the values of generosity, richness, and kindness that Iranian cuisine offers to the world by elevating the beauty of many regional traditional Iranian dishes, one plate at a time. Her inspiration for this easy and delicious stuffed fish and Persian herb salad recipe is from her fond memories of eating fish in the coastal regions of Iran. So now Soulpepper Theater Company is excited to help welcome you to the special offering in partnership with Toronto Life's Insider, celebrating their premiere of The Parliament of Birds by Guillermo Vendecchia, freely adapted from the Farid Uddin Attar's The Conference of the Birds, and directed by Sohail Passa, available to stream digitally starting today. This new series of events and offerings is presented in support of Around the World in 80 Plays, their 8-week global adventure of audio dramas, in-depth documentaries from CBC Ideas, and cultural highlights celebrating the global canon. Theater has the power to transport us. So while we're at home, they're inviting audiences on a guided tour of the rich theatrical practices of the world. Around the World in 80 Plays, programming presents 8 audio dramas celebrating the global canon with works from Russia, India, Argentina, Jamaica, Iran, Nigeria, Italy, and Canada. Iran is the 6th destination with the pieces from Canada, Argentina, Italy, Russia, and India already live for you to listen to. With each weekly release taking us to another destination, we at Toronto Life Insider will help you sink your teeth into culinary experiences of that country. After you enjoy today's treat brought to you by Armita, we invite you to join the Parliament of the Birds, an epic journey in search of self-enlightenment and truth. More information about Around the World in 80 Plays is available at soulpepper.ca. All right, so some quick housekeeping notes before we get started. Please make sure to ask your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll make sure to answer as many questions along the way. Now I'd like to introduce Armita, and please take it away.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here and welcome to everyone who's watching. We're going to be cooking up a storm, making 2 dishes. So one is an appetizer and one is a main meal. I'm excited to share this meal and this recipe with you guys. It brings a lot of good memories for me growing up in Iran. Fish is a food that we primarily serve during our New Year, but it's also served in the coastal regions of Iran as well. So as you'll see, I have all the ingredients already posted on the website with the quantities and how to prep them. What makes this dish unique is many of the ingredients that we use that are unique to Iran. For example, we have barberries, pomegranate molasses, as well as pomegranate seeds, and walnuts that bring such a unique flavor, and they're very common ingredients that we use in many different dishes. So for example, we have barberries are a type of berry that are very sour tasting. They're from the barberry shrub. We call them zareshk in Farsi, and pomegranate molasses. A lot of these ingredients that you'll see that may not be necessarily, you may not be familiar with them or not have access to it in Canadian grocery stores, can be purchased in Middle Eastern and Iranian grocery stores. We serve these with chicken. We have barberries. We stuff them in chicken. We stuff them in fish. Pomegranate molasses is also used in a lot of our stews or khoresht or braised dishes. So these are the main ingredients. As we're making the fish and as it's going to be baking in the oven, I'm also going to teach you how to make a salad. that's also again unique. It's an herb salad. We have all the ingredients that I'll again introduce to you as well. So let's not waste any time and dig in. If you have any questions as I'm prepping, please ask. I'm happy to answer, and let's get started. So to get started, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to bring all of these ingredients together. And by that, I mean we're going to saute them. The reason for that is because it brings the taste of all the ingredients. It really brings out the flavors. And then we're going to take the sauteed ingredients and stuff it in the fish, which is very simple. So we're going to start with preheating our stove. I'm going to preheat mine to medium. And we're going to saute the onions for about 10 minutes or until they're browned. Okay, a little trick is to make sure that you drop the oil in there, let it heat up a little bit, and then add the onions. The reason for that is because then the onions won't soak up the oil, and it will fry and saute much faster. Okay, so I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna put my oil, I'm gonna put it in the pan. It's slowly getting hot. Again, not all of it, just half of what I have. And we're gonna let that heat up a little bit, and then we'll add our onions. So to tell you about the ingredients as this is heating up, what you're going to expect from this dish is a lot of rich flavors. So walnut has a very earthy, rich flavor. Barberries are very sour, and so is pomegranate molasses. So it has a thick texture. It's quite sour. It blends very nicely with the walnuts as well. And we're going to add garlic. Garlic is always a no-brainer when it comes to eating fish. Again, it brings a lot of those unique smells and aromas. It also takes away a little bit of that fishiness that you have in the fish. We're going to be also adding some spices, just salt and pepper, not too much because we have a lot of rich flavors already. And lastly, we'll garnish our fish with pomegranate seeds. So again, I'm also going to show you how to style this food. If you do check me out on Instagram, you'll see that I'm very much interested and I enjoy making food look beautiful and pretty and styling it. And then I care a lot about its presentation. So that's also going to be something we're going to be doing together. Hopefully that hour is going to be enough to get all of these things done, just because our recipes are quite simple, easy to make. It's just a little bit of prepping in advance, which is very common with a lot of Iranian dishes. They're not hard to make. They just need patience, some time. And really the trick with Persian food is the prepping that goes into it. Otherwise, the steps to make them are quite easy. Okay, so I think we have our oil heated up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add the onions. And there we go. Okay, so I'm slowly going to add the onions and we'll get them sizzling and sauteed. Now, this is not in the list of the ingredients that I've posted, but what I would recommend, and with what we usually as Persians, one spice that we always use is turmeric. It has a lot of benefits, especially for digestion, and it brings out the colors and the taste. So I'm gonna add a little bit of that, just a touch of that to the onion. Again, that's a preference. You don't really have to for this recipe. There are all these little things that you add that make or break it. So we're gonna saute onions. I can already see that it's kind of sizzling. Now, if you are following along as I'm making this, again, depending on what kind of stove you're using, It may take you a little bit longer. It may take you, much sooner. Oh, a little bit of that still. To get this all sauteed. We just want it to brown up a little bit. I'm gonna increase the temperature. But so I wanted to get, I want the texture to be a little bit mushy. I wanted to get brown. Again, it's because the flavor of the onion, especially with turmeric, it's much more rich when you stuff it sauteed in the inside of the fish. Okay. Part of one of the most important steps for preparing the barberry is to soak it in water for about 20 to 30 minutes before cooking it, because barberries are dried barberries. You want them to plump up a little bit before, and then we're going to cook it before we put it in the fish. So try not to have the barberries dried in the fish. Again, soak them in not hot water, not cold water, just lukewarm water for about 20 minutes. Not too long, but not too short either. So this ingredient is very personal to me, but because my mom, when I was growing up, she would make a lot of stuffed fish, different variations. I've modified this a little bit. She used, different ingredients to stuff the fish, but I've modified it a little bit because I love pomegranate and I love barberries. And I use them a lot in my cooking. I usually make chicken barberries. We serve them with rice and saffron. If you are not able to get barberries, you can substitute it with cranberries, or you can substitute it with sour plums, any other fruit that has that sour taste to it. Okay. I know that we want to try to be as authentic as we can, but I also understand that it's the pandemic and some of these ingredients may be hard to purchase right off the bat. So my onion is starting to soften and it's kind of slowly starting to brown up. So we're going to give it a few more minutes. I thought that, an important part of if you've had Persian food or Iranian food or not, I think one of the things that makes Iranian food, and I'm kind of biased, very interesting is a lot of the philosophies that come behind how we prep food and what kind of ingredients we combine together. So in Iranian medicinal principles, each ingredient, each protein, and each ingredient has a temperament. So what do I mean by that? It has a specific nature. So some ingredients and foods are hot natured and have a hot temperament. Some have cold temperaments. And the reason for that, the principles that we follow in terms of combining what ingredient with what is to really promote health, well-being, having ingredients that go well together, so their temperaments complement one another. So you don't want to have a cold temperament or cold nature ingredient with a cold nature ingredient combined. It can cause, according to this philosophy, it can cause health issues. So we want to optimize health. You don't want to have hot-tempered or hot-natured ingredients with hot-natured ingredients. So you want to have a nice balance. The reason for that is we want to promote digestion and we want to promote health. So check off on this. It's almost ready. So for example, fish has a cold temperament. Walnuts and barberries have hot temperaments. So we often try to serve fish with garlic as well, has a hot temperament, with ingredients that balance its coldness. We never serve fish with yogurt, for example, because yogurt has a cold temperament. Okay, so this is just a little bit about why we use certain ingredients and what are some of the principles that drive Iranian cooking and our use of, again, ingredients based on certain nutritional values and health systems. Okay, so our onion is ready. I'm just gonna kind of show it to you. You'll see that it's kind of browned up. It's very soft. Okay. What I'm gonna do is just for about 3 to 5 minutes. 5 minutes might be even too long. I'm gonna add all the rest of the ingredients to that mix. So we're gonna have our garlic, the rest of the oil, the walnuts that are crushed, pomegranate molasses. We're leaving salt and pepper out of it for now, and barberries, and we're gonna stir them really quickly because we still want to preserve their rawness a little bit, so the rest is gonna cook in the oven. Okay, so I'm gonna add them one by one. So that's the oil. We're gonna add our garlic. I use fresh garlic as opposed to dry garlic. Again, if you don't have garlic, you could use garlic powder. Lastly, the barberries. You'll see that it's starting to slow, so I lowered it a little bit, and now I'm going there. Just for a few minutes, not too long. Barberries cook really fast. Another tip, I'm gonna add the pomegranate molasses. Another tip is because all of our pomegranate molasses, barberries, they're all very sour. I'm going to add a tiny bit of sugar just to balance the taste. Okay, so a little bit of sugar, and again, you don't need to stir it for too long. It's almost done. The colors are so rich, and it's going to be so flavorful. Okay. This is what we have, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to zoom in, and you're going to see it closely. I'm going to turn off this. Just look at that. Look at how beautiful just these colors and the textures and the taste. I'm going to preheat the oven to 375. We're going to be baking the fish. Okay, so as I said in the instructions that I had on the website, you can have a baking sheet and cook the fish on the baking sheet or without it. It really doesn't matter. As we're prepping it, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of this board. And I'm going to start prepping the fish. So we're going to let this cool down a tiny bit as we are prepping the fish, and we're going to then stuff it. Okay, so we'll leave this there. Now I have this container is oven safe. Let me see. Yeah, you can see it. I put a little bit of olive oil on there already, just so the fish doesn't stick to this. And even though it's ceramic, it should be fine, but I'm going to rub it gently with my hands to even it out. Okay, this is just to prevent it sticking. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to prep the fish. So one trick is to, as we're placing the fish here, one trick is to have small incisions on the fish, the meat here. Okay, we're going to do a few. We can. Okay, just like that diagonally. And the reason for that is it's going to let the fish cook, the meat cook evenly throughout. Okay. So be careful with your hands as you're doing that. The number of times I've cut myself and burned myself as cooking. Okay. So you'll see these little incisions right there through the meat to let it cook evenly. Okay. We'll do a little bit of that on this other side as well. Okay. All right. You'll see inside is gutted and cleaned. Again, some people may not like to eat the head of the fish or the tail. I think that it actually preserves the taste when you have the entire fish. There's a lot of meat in the cheeks, and the head is very tasty. If you don't want to use the head, you can cut it off, but it actually helps to keep the shape and the form of the fish together. It's very delicious. If you don't want to, you could even use it as a stock or in a fish stew. Again, it's up to you. It's a personal preference. I even like the look of the whole fish. I know some people are grossed out by it, but again, it's a personal preference. Okay, so salt and pepper. We're going to season the outside and the inside, because the outside usually gets washed up and it doesn't stick, but the inside, it actually goes into the meat. So we'll start with the inside. I've mixed my salt and pepper. I'm going to put a little bit, sprinkle inside of it. Okay. You can even rub it if you want. And we're going to put some outside, rub it on the skin. Okay, flip it around, do the same thing on the other side. I'm using kosher salt and black pepper. Okay, it's gonna add a little bit more of salt inside. Okay, all right, so that's that. Now the next step, again, super easy. The next step is we're gonna add the stuffing inside the fish. So you can choose to actually hold the fish together and sew it if you want to. I'm just going to let it be. So I'm going to take my stuffing and I'm going to really just fill it in as much as I can. My fish is about, I want to say 1.5 pounds. If you have a 2-pound fish, of course, you'll have more room to add these stuffings to it. But don't worry, if you have excess stuffing, you can always just put it around and give the outside a bit of flavor. Okay, just look at that. The pomegranate molasses is gonna just really get absorbed in the meat, and it will have this delicious soury, but we've also added some sugar, so it would be the perfect combo. Now I'm gonna add a little bit also around and on top. Just like that. I'm gonna let the head, the fish be. You don't want it to. Okay. The entire stuffing. hope I'm not going too fast if you're cooking with me and following along. Okay, so this is ready. We're gonna put in the oven for 15 to 20 minutes. Again, we have to kind of gauge. I like the fish to not be too crispy and overdone. But let's see, again, it should be about, I think, yeah, 20 minutes or so, and it would be ready and hopefully it would be fully cooked, okay? As I put this in the oven, the last step of garnishing is the pomegranate seed and the lime juice. Again, we'll do that afterwards. There's a little bit of pomegranate paste left. I'm just gonna put that, pour that on top, not waste any of this deliciousness, and we should be good to go. Okay. My oven needs to heat up a little bit more. It's still not heated up. Okay, we'll put this aside, and I'm going to show you how to make the salad. It's always important to do a little bit of cleanup if you have a few different dishes to make. So I'm just going to quickly wash my hands, clean up the surface, and then we'll get started on the salad. We don't want a whole mess that we have to then take care of afterwards. That's the OCD kicking in for me. All right. So it's 5:28. I'm gonna put the fish in the oven. It should be good. Okay. Probably need about 20 minutes for that to be ready. Okay. So next is our salad. Sabzi khordan salad. You may wonder what that means. Sabzi khordan means herbs. Sabzi means greens and herbs in Iranian and Farsi. And what's interesting about how we use herbs in our cooking is it's such a big piece of our meal. So we have herbs as side dishes. We'll have raw herbs, turnips and tarragon and mint and parsley as a side dish, and we have it with our main meals. We have herbs in our stews and in our khoreshes and in our soups chopped up. We have herbs in a form of frittatas, and really it's such a big part of our cuisine. So what I'm going to teach you is not necessarily an appetizer that Iranians make, but I've kind of put my own twist on it. It's nice to get creative once in a while and just try different ingredients and make your own. So our idea of how we serve herbs is usually as on the side, or, you know, as I said, in a main dish. What I decided to do is to chop all that goodness and freshness, and it really nicely also complements the fish, and make it into a salad. So as you may have read, everything needs to be washed, of course. We have a bunch of parsley that I finely chopped. You don't want it too chopped, it gets watery. Cilantro, I've again chopped. Cilantro, important. Keep the stalks. You don't, they're so sweet and delicious. You don't want to get rid of them. Same with parsley. I decided to, we usually normally eat it, but I decided to, for the purpose of it, you know, keeping the same form and shape, I chopped those off. We also have tarragon, and red turnips. I've, again, chopped the turnips. I chopped 3 large green onions or scallions. The tarragon, I haven't gotten rid of the stem, and because I wanted to show you how to easily take the leaves off and then put it in a salad. Tarragon is a very special herb. It has such unique taste. When you taste it, it's kind of bitter. But it's also, it has kind of a bit of a spice to it. It has sweetness. It has such complex aroma and as well taste. Because it's very intense, because it's very strong, we don't want to put too much of it. I know I said a bunch, so maybe a small bunch. We're going to have a little bit of tarragon, maybe 5-6 strands, but not too much because it will overpower the salad. Another point, you'll see that I've kept the leaves of the turnips. You can have the turnips as you see chopped. You can have the leaves. They're edible. They're delicious and nutritious. So I'm going to add a little bit of that to give it a different texture, given that we have different sizes that we've chopped for the salad. Our dressing is very simple. It's lemon and olive oil. If you want to, this is the lemon and the olive oil. If you want to have a dressing of your own, I think that we have so many different tastes that come out of chopping the herbs that we don't really need to make our dressing anything special. Like the lemon and the olive oil will really bring out everything together. And then lastly, we're gonna add salt and pepper as much as you like and need, okay? Also mint, I forgot to mention. Same thing with mint. I've suggested a bunch of mint. Here you'll see about, I want to say like a handful of mint that I have that I'm going to chop, and we'll put that. We don't want more than that because mint has a very intense and strong taste. We don't want them to, again, overpower, especially because we're using with tarragon as well, okay? So I've got a huge bowl. I don't know how I'm gonna eat all of this after class, and you can't even have any guest over. Anyhow, so I've already chopped the cilantro and the parsley. So I'm gonna pour all of that in the bowl. Again, this is why I said that it takes a lot of preparation, because chopping these and washing them, all of that takes time. That's why you want to give yourself some time when you prep the salad. Okay. Next, we're gonna add our mint. So I'm just gonna chop that. I want to make sure that I don't have any leftover mint here in my bowl. You don't need to, cut the mint too finely. Like, we don't want it to be too small, just enough to bring out the kind of mint, the extract and the taste of it out. Like, I think this is good enough. You don't want to bruise it too much. Okay, so we're going to add that into our bowl. I can already smell, it smells so fresh. The reason why I decided to pair the salad with the fish again is because we don't eat fish with yogurt. We try to stay away from that. The reason is because, again, too cold tempered ingredients can cause indigestion. So another ingredient is feta cheese, which is in my fridge, so I should not forget that. we're going to add the tarragon. So what you want to do is just really gently, you pull it down, and there you have it. Okay, so you pick the leaves and add them just really gently. Okay. I'm gonna do a few more strands. This is the cloud herbs is such a big ritual in Iran. Usually women gather and they clean herbs and they get together and they gossip and they, you know, talk about everything, and just it's really an act of it's such a community building thing to do in the kitchen. And if you have had Persian Iranian food, you know that we serve everything family style in very big portions. You know, in Iran, people buy herbs in kilos, like 1-2 kilos of tarragon and mint and parsley, fresh parsley, and they go through it in a few days. So that just shows you how much we consume herbs and how it's such a big part of our cuisine. Okay, so a few more. I can, as I'm breaking these leaves, I can even smell the tarragon. So it has such an intense aroma. Okay. All right, almost done. One more. We'll do one more just for good luck. Again, you take your hands, your fingers, gently you pull it down, and you get all the leaves out, just like that. Okay. All right. So that's our salad. We're almost there. We may even have some extra time before our fish is ready. I was worried that we're not going to have enough time, but I think we should be good. Okay, so next is green onions. I've chopped them finely. I'm going to add that to the mix. I've sliced the turnips. I'm gonna add that. And again, I am going to add a little bit of the turnip. I'm gonna add the leaves. I think not too much. The leaves are somewhat bitter, but I think they go nicely with the mint. It has like a very almost like earthy taste to it. If you haven't had the leaves of the turnips, it also, like, you'll, even if you look at the way the salad looks now, like you have different types of shapes of herbs on here, so it gives it some variety, and aesthetically I think it looks good. Just a few more. Okay. There we go. Okay. All right. Now, what we need is the feta cheese. So I'm gonna get the feta cheese on my fridge. Again, feta cheese is one of those things that most Persians can't live without. We have feta cheese with jam for our breakfast. We have feta cheese with bread and herbs as snacks, sometimes even lunch or dinner. Feta cheese is such a big part of our cuisine. Again, we use it in salads, we use it in brunch on top of our eggs. I do that a lot. I make eggs with dates and feta cheese, and it just it's I love the texture and I love the taste. So let me grab that, and we're gonna add a little bit of that. Okay, so this should be about the amount that I've indicated roughly on the website. So this is a block. Again, I like to just break it up. Add that to the salad. It will go nicely with the lemon and our olive oil. Okay. Lastly, let me just wash my hands. Okay. So lastly, salt and pepper as you want. I'm going to be a bit generous with salt and some fresh pepper. I love pepper too, so can't get enough of that. And lemon and olive oil. Okay, so you could just maybe mix it a little bit. I've already put the two together. Okay, and just pour that on top. There we go. Okay, a little trick, although we're using lime later, but if your lime is really stiff and you feel like there's not enough juice in it, you could put it in the microwave. This is a kitchen hack. You could put it in a microwave for about 20 to 30 seconds, and the juice will come out, but be careful because it might be really hot when you're cutting it in half. You don't want to burn yourself, but that's a way to really get all the juice and maximize what's in here. Okay, so our salad is ready. I would mix it all, just mix it all together.
We have a question that just came in. So what kind of feta cheese are you using? Also, what temperature is the oven for baking the fish?
So the temperature in the oven is 375.
Great.
Okay, I preheated the oven a little bit later than I should have. So I think the fish is going to take a tiny bit longer because when I put it in the oven, it wasn't fully hot. So I want to say about 375, 350 to 375 if we're baking it for about 20 minutes. And the feta cheese that I used, this is actually a low-fat feta cheese. I got it from the Iranian store, of course. There are different varieties, but it's not a specific brand. It's just low-fat feta cheese. So you can use your own version of cheese. If you don't like feta cheese, it's not set in stone. You can choose a different type of cheese, but I would choose a cheese that does not have a lot of aroma or flavor. It's more on the simpler, blander side because you already have so much texture and so much aroma and different types of flavors in the herbs. So hopefully that's helpful. Okay. So we're just mixing this all together. And you really want the herbs to soak up the lemon and the olive oil. I'm getting hungry and it smells so good. This is, you can't go healthier than this. It's just, you're basically just having herbs that have so many benefits. And because the herbs they have kind of like a cool taste to them, they're perfect with the barberries and the walnuts that we're going to have. Okay. There we go.
And which good Iranian store would you recommend to get all these amazing ingredients from?
So I've listed everything on the website, depending on where you live. So if you live Midtown, Super Khorak is one. I've actually listed everything and then where they're located. Super Khorak is one of the biggest Persian stores that have all types of Iranian ingredients. If you live downtown Toronto, Banu on Queen and I think Tecumseh, Queen and Queen West has all the ingredients that I've listed for today's recipe. There are a few stores also I listed, I can't remember on top of my head, that you can order online. Walnuts you can find anywhere. I think feta cheese, again, you can find them in Canadian stores. The biggest two are barberries, which you will not find at Loblaws or any other store, as well as pomegranate molasses. Pomegranate molasses you can supplement with tamarind paste if you can't find it, but I think even Amazon would have pomegranate molasses, if I'm not mistaken. Okay. All right. So this is all done. I'm just waiting on the fish. If you think that you want to go a little bit a step further and really make this pretty and make it taste good, you can even add, again, this is not part of the recipe, but you could cheat a little bit and add some pomegranate seeds as well. It would just mix the greens with the reds and would make it look good. I recommended, I think, about 2 tablespoons of pomegranate seeds that we're gonna garnish our fish with. I can't get enough of pomegranates, especially in the summer. It's so fresh with a little bit of salt on top. So I'm going to be not pouring all of this, but I'm going to be putting more on top of mine. Okay, so that is done. Let's see for our fish. Let me see. So I think it needs a little bit longer. And then we're going to serve it. So what I'm also going to show you is how to plate these 2 dishes. Now, you can serve them kind of family style. You can have, your salad on the side and the fish on the side. I'm sure it's going to look good. Or you can use the salad as the background, kind of like a grass field. I'm a very visual person, so I always think of pictures or things that I see and try to make food look like that. So I'm going to use this I'm gonna wash it, and I'm gonna use this to plate the fish. Now, what I have in mind is putting all the herbs and salad as as a background, and then laying the fish on top of it. So you'll have the greens and a little bit of the pink and the whites, with the fish that has plenty of red and the earthy colors of walnuts, as well as the onion. So I'm gonna wash that, and if you have any other questions in the meantime, please ask me.
Armita, you mentioned how visually, you love to plate everything. You always think creatively. Where do you get your inspirations from?
So that's a good question. I get my inspiration from nature. I get it from, some of my memories. I would say primarily nature. I grew up in a very artsy family. My mom is quite artsy, so I've learned to think about, I guess maybe think outside of the box a little bit. So sometimes I'll use it. Maybe we use it in a salad, and I'll cut it a different shape, or I'll present it a different way that maybe we normally wouldn't. A lot of my posts, if you check out my Instagram, I've had, certain sceneries from childhood or when I traveled to Iran in mind, or a picture of it. And then I've used those colors, those landscapes and sceneries, and I've put the colors in a dish that I wanted to serve, or in a salad that I wanted to serve. Or I see other artists on Instagram, other chefs or other cooks, and let's say I'll draw inspiration from a piece of art that an artist did, that they painted, and I'll try to kind of resemble try to preserve the ingredients and respect the ingredients, but also in a way modernize the shapes or make it non-traditional, because a lot of our the Iranian dishes and our spreads are beautiful, and they're very traditional looking. So I try to see if I can present it in a different way that maybe we normally wouldn't. So that's kind of in a nutshell where I get my inspiration from. All right. Okay. Just gonna quickly check on our fish. It's slowly getting there. Okay, it's gonna need I think another 5 to 7, 8 more minutes. Okay. So we're gonna start with this until the fish is ready. The fish is taking its time. So let me just see, I want to make sure that you can see. Okay, there we go. So I'm just going to lay the salad. And I think what's interesting about how we present food is we often go to a restaurant and the food is presented in, a very fancy gourmet way, and it really increases our appetite and it makes us want to eat more. And COVID has, at least for me, been a time to really treat myself. If I'm bored and I'm stuck at home and I can't go outside to a restaurant, why not create the same experience for myself? So for me, it's been really an opportunity to use my creative outlet, and not just when I'm hosting or when I have other people around, but to kind of treat myself and, you know, increase my own appetite. I think the way a dish looks, when it looks beautiful, you want to eat it. You're more inclined to want to try a dish. And okay, so I'm gonna add some of these turnips you'll see just around to kind of even out the colors, because we have a lot of greens. And this is probably the way I think, like, because of my training in psychology. There is actually, this is my science geeky part coming up, but there's actually a lot of research that shows how our senses are connected. Our senses are connected to the parts of the brain, for example, the prefrontal cortex, the front of the brain, that really stimulates emotions and it regulates emotions. So when you smell something, when you see something, and not only the food looks good or it smells good, sometimes it brings back a lot of emotions for you. It brings back nostalgia. And I think that's why food is not just a physical experience. Eating is not a physical experience. It's a very emotional, psychological experience. So, for example, a lot of research shows that when you use bright colors, such as red or yellow, as a plate, it increases your appetite, but you're eating more, but you're not enjoying more. That's why you'll see a lot of fast food restaurants using colors red and yellow. Or there's research to show that when you listen to really loud, exciting music, again, you eat more, but doesn't mean that you enjoy the food more. It actually suppresses the pleasure of eating. So that comes into play in a lot of restaurants. You may notice, I don't know, next time, hopefully when things open, that when there's exciting music in the background, it kind of really fuels you and you eat and you eat and you eat, versus when you're in a restaurant, the music calm and the surrounding is peaceful, you'll have more pleasure while eating. So all of these ways that we can manipulate our senses, we can do it at home. We can do it with the colors that we use in our ingredients, right? We could spice things up, and instead of going for the same dish or the same meal that we always make, use a different ingredient or try another cuisine. It enhances the ritual of eating, which is 3 times a day, and we have to eat all the time. So why not make it memorable? Okay. So either something really wrong with my oven today and it's very slow and it's not properly circulating heat, or this fish does not want to cook. Let's check on it again. it needs more time. I guess my timing was off.
Would you recommend letting the fish sit a little at room temperature before throwing it in the oven usually?
Yeah. So the fish should not be frozen for sure. So if you have a frozen fish, put it in cold to lukewarm water for about 20 minutes. You really want to kind of sink it in. Not the whole fish, like wrap it around. Hopefully if it's sealed, then in the sealed bag, or seal it and let it sit. And then about 20 minutes or so, you should see that it starts to open up. And then you want to serve it immediately if you can, or you want to cook it immediately. You don't want to let it sit for a long time, because then it can get bacteria contracted in it. And it's just probably the best way is to, if you have frozen fish, and you can do this with salmon, you can, again, this recipe can be made with not a whole fish, it could be a part of a fish. You just won't stuff it, but you pour it on top. Make sure that after it's frozen and it's kind of ready to be baked or cooked, do it immediately. Don't let it sit in room temperature air, because it can get bacteria. So that's what I would suggest. Or at least put it in the fridge and then cook it after. Okay. So, for the hell of it, because we have time, I'm going to add some pomegranate. Just little, these are like little jewels. We use pomegranate. If anyone has ever seen a spread that we use for Iranian New Year, it's a whole spread with different kinds of fruits and different kinds of ingredients, and each ingredient symbolizes something. So it symbolizes health and wealth, and pomegranate is one of the fruits that we put on top of our spreads.
And while we're waiting, can you tell us maybe if you remember one of the first dishes you ever cooked when you were younger?
So I seriously started cooking when I was in my mid-20s, when I had to live on my own. One of the first dishes that I cooked was pasta, and oh my God, it was a disaster. It was just all mushy, and I hadn't boiled it properly, and it tasted horrible. So I made pasta with zucchini, and it was just a disaster. And I remember my friends making fun of me, and they're like, "You're never gonna, just never cook in the kitchen. You're not gonna make a good cook." So I had to, being the stubborn person that I am, I had to make it my mission to practice and cook. And I think as I got older, and that might be the case for many people, is you start to appreciate your culture, and you start to maybe appreciate your family and some of the wisdom and some of the things that they teach you, and you want to honor that and remember that. So my way to do that was to cook my mom's recipes. During the pandemic, I asked her to write a book for me, list all her recipes, the ones that I don't know, so I can keep it and make it. So yeah, I wasn't a really good cook. I had to really practice, and I had friends over, and I would cook for them, and Some days it would be good, and some days it would not be so good. But it became a passion, and I I became good at it. I don't want to be cocky, but I would say now I'm a pretty good cook if you ask people who've tried my food. Okay. Does anybody have any other questions related to the dish or the ingredients that we used, how to make them?
Would you recommend any other fish to use for this recipe?
Yeah, you could use white fish, um, cod, trouts. I use the rainbow trout. I think it's pretty, like, it's such an easy recipe to make, and you can, again, you can use any fish for the most part that you would want. I like white fish and I like trout, so I use trout today. You can even use salmon. So I'm going to actually try, I have salmon in the fridge. I'm going to try the same fillings with salmon and just pour it on top of salmon and serve that. And I think that would also go nicely. So it's a pretty versatile recipe. You can even use the fillings that I taught you today to stuff chicken. So what I do for Thanksgiving is actually I use the barberries, and I use rice and barberries and walnuts as my stuffing, and everybody loves it. It gives it a tangy, very soury taste with, you know, some lemon in there, and lemon juice on top of the injected into the meat of the turkey. So you can go wild. I think the essence of what makes this recipe, again, special and unique, what makes it an Iranian recipe is the use of the pomegranate molasses. It's the use of pomegranate seeds. It's the use of the garlic with the walnut and the barberries. So that can be your stuffing for any other protein, I would say.
And since it's grilling season, would you recommend grilling it on the barbecue instead of baking it in the oven?
Yeah, you can. What would happen when you grill it? Again, it's a personal choice. I think some people like, I've even recommended you can broil it a little bit for it to get crispy. I like the fish to still be kind of tender and not overcooked. But definitely you can grill it for sure. That would also be pretty good. If you're going to grill it, I would say you can even marinate the fish beforehand, maybe for a few hours in the sauce, in the pomegranate molasses, and also in, you know, the onion and all of that. Really marinate it and let it sit for a few hours before you grill it. It will just absorb all the juice. It absorbs all the taste and the flavors. It makes it or breaks it. I typically marinate. Today I didn't because I wanted to show you guys how to really, but I typically marinate even my salmon and my fish at least for a couple of hours with the stuffing or the marination that I use. It makes a huge difference because the protein really sucks in all the juice and all the flavors.
Good to know. And we have a question here from Melanie. What's the difference between pomegranate paste and molasses?
Pomegranate paste and molasses are pretty much the same thing. I haven't used a pomegranate paste, to be honest. I've always used a pomegranate molasses. I'll actually bring it to show you. I don't know if anybody has that. It's a very, they're pretty much the same thing. I think people use them interchangeably. It has a very thick texture. If you don't find pomegranate molasses, which is rare, like all the Middle Eastern stores should have, even Amazon has it because I checked. You can use tamarind because it has the same tangy tamarind paste. It has the same tangy flavor and the same texture. So I've seen people use pomegranate paste and molasses interchangeably. I've always used pomegranate molasses. I believe they're the same thing. I could be mistaken, but don't quote me on it. Because when you look up pomegranate paste and molasses, the same products come up. I'm just gonna wash my hands for a sec. Okay. I'm gonna give it one last chance. Let's check on the fish. I think it's ready, but I'm gonna so how you want to check if it's ready, you don't want the meat to be red. You kind of want it to be a pinky white, not even full pink, but and quite tender. So when you stick the knife in the flesh of the fish, it should come out and it shouldn't be too juicy. So let's see. Yeah, so the fish is ready. Finally, I'm gonna take it out. There we go. I don't know if you can see, but it's perfectly cooked. Again, 375 for 20 minutes should be fine. The reason it took longer was because my oven wasn't preheated. So that's why it took longer. Okay, so you'll see that the fish is perfectly cooked. It has that tender, it's kept its juiciness. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna gently transfer over the fish onto the other plate, and you'll see even some of the barberries are a little bit burnt on top. So this is why one of you asked if you can grill the fish, do it. But if you're grilling the fish, make sure that it's stuffed inside the fish so it keeps it moist and it doesn't burn. So okay, let's see if we can. So be careful with this step. Right there. You can even take some of the extra stuffing and put it on top. And then add, your last step is to add the pomegranate seeds. Again, I put it in the salad, but you can put some right there. Okay. All right. And again, if you want to serve this, this is going to feed a couple of people. If you're going to serve it, the incisions that we made first initially to help it cook is also going to help the fish to be cut easier. So you could serve it. It's up to you if you want to open it up. I don't want to kind of mess up how it looks. Or you can just cut it into halves and then serve it with the salad. So there we go. That's the stuffed fish with walnuts and barberries. Does anybody have any other questions?
I don't know if anyone has any last minute questions, but I want to thank you so much for this amazing class tonight, Armita. Your dishes look so delicious and beautiful. It's almost too beautiful to eat, right? And I also want to thank Soulpepper Theater Company again. For more information about Around the World in 80 Plays, check out soulpepper.ca. And Armita, what's your Instagram handle? We want to make sure to check out your Instagram photos.
Yeah, it's Cooking with Armita, all one word. And you'll see some recipes, some photos of me plating food and videos and lots of goodies there.
Amazing. Well, make sure to check it out. And lastly, thank you to everyone for joining us this evening. Please make sure to check out your inboxes for upcoming virtual Tiala Insider events. Have a great night. Stay safe and see y'all again soon. Thank you.